Hi, everybody. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone on LinkedIn Live. Welcome to our show. Today is our 92nd podcast on LinkedIn Live. We have a discussion on the topic of fulfillment as an art and a science in your life and work. We have Thomas, Rajiv, Sunil joining us onto the platform. Without further ado, bringing them onto the platform. Welcome, Rajiv. Welcome, Sunil, Thomas, onto the dash. Over to you,
Thank
people.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Prem.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Prem.
Okay, thank you, Prem. Welcome, everyone, to our LinkedIn live session, which today is, as Prem has just said, fulfillment uh, as an art and a science in your life and work. And today we will explore how managers, executives, and directors can discover how important their personal life mission and vision are to a fulfilling life. So let's dive into maybe our first subject with a kind of statement, really. When you join the Regenesis program, when you join our network, however you join, whether it's from the kind of most inexpensive join to the network, or whether it's in a complicated multi-manager, maybe a significantly bigger program in a corporate organization or a somewhat larger uh, mid-size, then whichever way you join, we start with one thing. First of all, uh, there's a kind of free gift at the front end. There's about £1,000 worth of training, or $1,000 worth of training available on the front end, regardless of how little your entry price is. That's really important. And one of the most important things we do in that session, you get an hour one-to-one with one of us, one of the top consultants. And what we do with you, we help you build your personal strategy for your life and your work ahead for maybe the next 25 or 40 or even 50, 60 years. We help you take the long frame. One of the most important pieces we do in that session is to help you identify your underpinning life mission. And this is the, if you like, the central fundamental purpose of your life. We have a special process for doing that, where we really begin to get you to surface why you are here. And it could be in this place, in this job, but perhaps more importantly, on this planet at this time. And we feel that every person has some clues to that in their unconscious or their subconscious mind, depending on how you like to call it. And that is usually the start of being able to identify your personal mission. We then say, okay, if you live that mission, that purpose out in your life, how do you think that will manifest in your life and your work? And so what's your vision for maybe 15 to 25 years' time initially? And then later we ask you, how do you see that playing out over maybe 50 years or 60 years or even the whole of your life? What would you like to achieve? These are really big and important questions where we get you to strategize in broad terms. And then from there on, fulfillment, you will find, starts to come from being as close as possible on your path to your fulfillment of your life's mission. So I'm going to stop there and open it up to some questions from Rajiv and Sunil. So over to you guys. Where are we going to start?
Yeah, Thomas, thank you for very insightful topic and a very lively discussion I'm sure we are going to have on this. So can you share some specific techniques and for self-reflection that have proven effective in identifying one's core values? Uh, because that's, I believe, is the very important aspect of discovering your personal life mission.
Sure, absolutely. Well, let's start with a couple of the more commonly available ones. One of those I would offer to you is the five whys technique, where you repeatedly ask yourself why. And in this case, it's why am I here, as in on the planet, or what is my fundamental purpose? Why that? Yeah, and you just keep asking why until you drill down to some really underlying, underpinning kind of realities, if you like. However, over the years, I've found a better way of doing this, which I'd like to offer to you. And this is to sit quietly, where you've got some time to calm yourself, to maybe stabilize your breathing and clear your mind, and to begin to learn to listen to the quiet voice of your unconscious mind. The conscious mind is always busy, it's always thinking. And for anybody that meditates, uh, you'll probably realize that the goal ultimately is to try and calm the conscious mind so you can hear the speaking and the sensing from the deeper self. And that's the kind of state we're looking for. Uh, and in that state, if you ask a question, unlike the conscious mind that needs to think about it for a few seconds and then reply, the unconscious mind will probably hear question answer. So you need to be prepared and quiet enough inside to be able to hear that immediate answer. So if you were to ask the question, why am I here, as in on the planet, then you're going to hear an answer. It's a question answer. It's almost going to come straight off the back. And it's being quiet enough to hear that answer. So that is what I would offer as a much better technique. And to write down the maybe 2 or 3 or 5 words that you get in response immediately. And then to check it out either by going back through your history and say, how have I given this meaning in my life? And the more you do this, although there's more process involved, the more you will gain confidence in what you're hearing from your unconscious mind. I remember mine, before I knew this technique properly, was something like to make a difference. If I were to ask myself, why am I here? Or what's my fundamental purpose? It would be to make a difference, to help other people, those kinds of things. But truly, when I gave myself some quiet time, when I eventually sat down and asked the question at a deeper level, I got a much deeper answer. And when you join Regenesis, when you join us in the team, I'll share with you what that is. I don't want to do that now because it might shape what you begin to think might be your deeper answer. And that would be my deeper answer. It's more important for your deeper answer to come out of the woodwork somewhere, wherever that is. I've asked literally thousands of people this question as I've worked with them. And the answers are hugely varied. And it's amazing how different people's responses will be. I remember my grandmother, her aunt, yes, I asked my grandmother as a young man when I was in my teens. I didn't know why I was asking the question, but I did. When I asked her, why are you here, Gran, as in on the planet? She said, to love children. And in fact, when I thought about it and talked to her about it, she had spent her whole life trying to help children grow up and become competent and capable and confident as people. So there was a very different answer. And she had had a vision as a young woman, how she would help as many children as possible by parenting other people's children, joining things like group communities where she would run a creche of children, and she could keep a group of 30 children quite happy for a couple of hours just on her own. She had amazing talent in that regard. So truly it was her purpose. So let's let me pause there. That's enough stories of the kind of things that happen when you do these pieces of work. But Sunil, what are your questions at this moment?
I think, Thomas, first of all, thank you for bringing this topic. This topic is very, very important topic. And this is applicable for all of us, for every student, for every working professional, for housewives, everybody. So this is basically questions us. This is basically helps us to discover ourselves and find out our existence in this earth. So I personally believe that I believe in the science of 114 chakras. And I also believe that when we align this 114 chakras of science, then we understand what is the purpose and why we exist in this nature. The second important thing is there are two steps we are talking. That is the finding the core values. And I believe that core values are the melody of our soul. So when one individual identify those core values, then the second step is to find out, uncover their passion and the purpose of life. So Thomas, can you help me and help the viewers also to identify that if somebody identify their core values, then what exercise will help them to uncover their personal passions and purpose?
Sure, sure. And I think it's a matter of just starting somewhere. This is a whole range of connected things: our personal mission, our purpose, our vision, our picture in our minds of how we want our life and our career and our world to be in the future, with the thing that we're trying to build. So that's the vision. And then the values really are the how we're going to get there. What do we feel is important on the journey to there? Which of our behaviors do we think will be the most valuable and the most useful in taking us there? Um, so these are very, very important questions, and they may take either weeks, certainly, or perhaps many months, or even a number of years to really refine. I know I probably spent 15 years working on this before I had something that really began to motivate me and mobilize me. But the more I focused on this, the more successful I became in my career, because I felt I was doing the right thing and I was enjoying myself. And I think it's back to the word that's the title of this session. I felt fulfilled. I was willing to put the energy in. I was willing to be tenacious and resistant and persistent to pursue those long term goals, despite the setbacks, because they were just steps along the journey. And sometimes it was steep and hard, and other times it was easy and cruising. But I'll tell you from experience that sometimes the easy and cruising bits are the bits when it's most possible to go wrong, in my experience. Whereas when you're battling to go in a certain direction, it's much easier to hang on to the ultimate goal, provided you don't get run too far off path. But let's come back to some of these things. Going just for personal passions and values, another good exercise to start with is what I've come to know as the values shift. And that's SHIF for Freddie T, shift, the values shift. And the exercise I do is what behaviors and values do I want to stop doing or do less of? So what things do I know about myself? So this is a bit about self-awareness. What things do I know about myself that I want to do less of or stop doing? What things, and then the second question is continue. So stop, continue. What things do I know about myself that I really value and I like and I'm pretty sure are the right things for me to do? So what behaviors and values? And what I mean by values, what do I feel is important? Where do I put my emphasis and attention? And usually that's followed by where your behavior flows to where the reinforcement is. And if you give yourself reinforcement in an area, your behavior will likely flow there. So what things do I value and like about myself that I wish to keep, retain, to continue to do about the same rate? And then lastly, what things do I need to start doing or do more of going forwards to help me on my journey? So what new things do I need to introduce, and how will I reinforce those to myself? And to literally make written down lists. So for me, part of the personal strategy building is to begin to write down what you believe to be is your personal mission. Secondly, then to write down and maybe create a pen picture, or maybe it's a bunch of pictures you pull together to represent your vision for your future. But I actually also think it's important to pull together a pen picture, a paragraph of half a page or just a little bit more of describing what you'll see, hear, and feel in the future once your vision has actually come about. So what will that be like? And then lastly is to come down and write down the three kind of columns of values: the stop, the starts, and the continues. And that, I think, makes a really good start on your strategy. And it's from there that we do the work in the onboarding process when you join the Regenesis network.
Great. So, Thomas, I have a question for you. Can you elaborate on the importance of aligning your professional role with your personal mission and vision? I think that's something everybody struggles with, and sometimes we don't have a very clear clarity on how to handle this one. So, it'll be interesting to know your views on this.
For sure, for sure. My experience is, and I've literally worked with about 8,500 people over the years, mostly managers. If you are on path, in other words, if you are living your life and doing work which is aligned with your inner purpose, your inner mission, and helps you move towards your personal vision, how you want your life and career to be, you will be much more motivated. Every day becomes a step towards where you really want to go and end up doing and having and being in the world. So the more you align it, then the happier you'll be. So that's the, the big importance. And of course, with enthusiasm and motivation, usually comes salary as well. The more you get aligned to who you really are and what you can really contribute to the world, how you serve the world, the more likely it is, if you've got yourself into the best fit of job for you, then you will be able to contribute a lot. And when you do that, it has value for your employer and the people around you and their customers. And so, in turn, if you create value for people, they will pay for it, especially if you do that much more consciously. And the whole regenesis process is about becoming much more conscious and intentional about all of this. So let me pause there and see what else we want to discuss.
Yeah. So, Thomas, can you provide some practical strategies also for integrating personal values into daily work?
Sure. The most important one is the one that I've said, which is the value shift. But usually, what I get both teams, because we do this at a teams level too, and an organization level, to identify usually about a top 6 core values. And to those top 6, we also add, for each one, we add, how will we know we are truly living this value? So, what would we need to see to know that we're absolutely living and behaving in a way that aligns to this core value? So, you've got your top 6 values, you've got a statement of what you need to see, and then you could, if you wanted to, give yourself a score out of 10 for each one of those top 6 or so values. And you could do that regularly. You could stop maybe at the beginning. It might be once a month when they're new and you want to see if you're reinforcing your own behavior by internal recognition that you're doing well, you're moving, you're behaving in the way that you'd intended, you've overcome some of the negative traits that you wanted to eliminate, and so on. And you give yourself internal rewards. But in terms of a team, it's also very good for a team to spell out its values in the same way using the value shift methodology. And the team can then score itself, so they can look at how collectively they're actually living to those values and whatever that mission is for the organization. So you basically make a scorecard and you use it regularly, maybe once a month or maybe once a quarter. Just come back and score yourselves as a group or an individual. How am I doing against the ways I said I would behave? And how am I doing in terms of what I said I'd treat as important in my life? So just lay that out and be honest, become more self-aware and begin to kind of take stock and truly give yourself some feedback. How well are you doing?
Thomas, we are discussing very interesting topic, and I'm sure during your this 40 years or 40 plus years of professional career, you must have come across a lot of case study where a manager have successfully aligned their work with their mission, and they have become successful. So can you share some of those case studies?
Sure, there are so many. I'm sure you can think of your own examples, but just one example is the founder of Tom's Shoes. Now, I don't think these were available entirely around the world, but he was a large shoe manufacturer that specialized in the production and the provision of shoes for children, really well-fitting, nice to have, pleasing to wear shoes for children. And he built that into his company's principles, and this kind of alignment with what he really powerfully wanted to do with his life, became the driving force for creating what became a very large company, and it fulfilled his personal mission, but it also drove that company to massive success and impact in all the markets where they're present. There are many other examples. Anita Roddick of the Body Shop fame, again, a fairly global company. You may have come across it, and they sold a lot of natural products to help people look after themselves, their skin, their well-being. But again, she was another founder who looked after, who blended her personal mission with her company's values. But I think it's not just people who own companies that do this. I think we all tend to, if we can, seek out jobs that provide us with a level of fulfillment. And one of the pieces of regenesis that we also look at is what happens when a person's personal outcomes are outside of their present job. Now, this does happen to about 2% of people at any one time, are probably out of line in their work with who they are as a person. Well, the only solution really is to own up to this and help that person move and get off their wrong bus. We've talked about this before, because if they're on your bus and it's the wrong bus, they need to get off the bus, and they need to have help to do that in a kindly way, so you don't frighten all the other employees on the bus, and move to their own correct bus, find their right bus. And we've told stories about this in past sessions, where doing this in a skillful way is a lot better than just getting rid of the person, or just kind of dropping out. Those things don't work. So it's very important to look after these sorts of things. And another one that I think probably everybody will recognize is Howard Schultz of Starbucks, whose vision to create a third place between work and home influenced every aspect of Starbucks, the coffee shop, their operations and culture. And certainly, I became one of their fans, and I enjoy it being a quasi-workplace. Sometimes it's my relaxation place away from work, and sometimes it's my place to go with work, to go think in a different way. Anyway, there are some examples.
Very interesting, Thomas. Both the case studies you talked about are very inspiring, and in fact, Starbucks is a something which everybody admires and people want to go. It's a go-to place for everyone. So, Thomas, I would like to ask you, what are some common challenges which managers face in maintaining alignment, and how can they overcome them? Which is, I think, everybody struggles with that. So, kindly share your thoughts on that.
Sure. I think the most common challenge can be overcome with one big thing, and this is kindly self-awareness. It's the big thing that we can give to ourselves, which is I'll say that again, kindly self-awareness, not hypercritical self-awareness, but kindly self-awareness, and trying to listen to and listen for your internal resistance, your internal, what you perceive to be your limitations, your personal doubts, your whatever feelings are on the go, trying to understand them and allowing them to be, with behaviors that are unhelpful to you. If you could just become aware of them and know that they're unproductive and unhelpful to you, the likelihood is it'll be much easier to encourage them to fall away. They will eventually disappear because your unconscious mind gets to realize that these feelings and autoplay responses from deep down within ourselves are unhelpful. So it'll actually stop playing them. They're not welcome. Probably originally got, invented. Many of these things got invented when we were children, and it was there to help our safety or to help us feel better. But now, as adults, they're no longer useful. So many things come from ourselves. We block ourselves in many respects. And if you get really stuck anywhere, then go find somebody to help you. It's vital. Sometimes you need deeper kind of psychological and neurological insights to help you unlock and unblock yourself if you get really stuck. And I know, for anybody that gets to know Genesis, we have such a person on our team, a specialist in unblocking managers and executives and directors and all the other variations thereof. People who know they're stuck. They're self-aware enough to know they're stuck, and perhaps with just a few sessions, they can be given a new protocol or a strategy or some tactics to overcome that particular hurdle inside themselves. Very, very important. But for the most part, we can do it on our own. It's just about that kindly self-awareness and then deciding how to shift our values and behavior to do that and how we need to reinforce that. And the science of fulfillment reveals how fulfilling work impacts mental health and cognitive function. So if we're enjoying ourselves, we think better, we function better, we work better, we get paid more, and all those things really matter. And research shows that purpose trumps passion every time out. In fact, there's quite a lot of research now which proves this to be the case. Anybody that's interested, I can certainly dig out the facts around that, how purpose trumps passion every time out. We used to think that if you are a passionate leader, regardless of your management capabilities, that it would be enough. But no, what we know is that sometimes goes a bit wrong and sometimes leads the team and even the organization with passion alone is at play. You actually need clear purpose and you need clear strategies, ones that have been tested, at least pre-flight tested before you use them. So that's the key to personal and team fulfillment. So let's dive a bit more into some of the neurological and psychological aspects. Maybe some more questions around some of those, please.
Yes, Thomas, I have many, but the most important thing, and as you know, that this is becoming a very important issue with lots of managers, and they have, suddenly started realizing that there are, psychological and neurological insights which they have to deal with on daily basis. So, and mental health is also becoming very important aspect for everyone. So, so Thomas, can you tell us how does fulfilling work specifically impact mental health and cognitive function? Because that's where more and more awareness is coming, and people are realizing that they need to look at this aspect very carefully and make sure that their mental health remains good.
Sure, sure. Great question, actually. The brain's reward system is all about releasing dopamine, which enhances mood and motivation and cognition. You think better, you think faster if you can generate some dopamine. Whereas if in the same moment you were to be having a different experience and you were producing stress hormones like cortisol, which is basically the stress and the fear response, it dampens down the immune system, it dampens down the cognitive function. So, furthermore, kind of purpose-driven work can lead to a state of flow where you just have got, in the moment, you've got it. Whatever it's needed, you've got it, and you're flowing with it, and the work is going easily, and it's flowing suddenly. So, what separates the two? How do we separate stress from excitement? Well, part of it is just giving it a new name. Often we can say, oh, it's really hard work, this. Instead of saying it's stressful and tiring, we could actually say it's exciting and motivating, and we could just tell ourselves a different story. So again, it's back to this kindly self-awareness. What am I thinking about in this moment? And can I use a simple strategy to help myself overcome some of the things that are going on? So first of all, acknowledge what's going on. What's the feeling? What's the kind of sensation in my body that I'm getting? And maybe just allowing that to be there, understanding why it's there, perhaps, but really then saying, okay, I understand it's there. I'm going to be compassionate to myself, but actually, I'm going to decide now what action I need to take. And I'm going to focus on doing that. And virtually always, uh, the difficult feelings that are blocking us start to fall away. Or if we kind of reprocess the moment and say, actually, instead of having stage fright, I'm going to have stage excitement. I'm going to code this adrenaline coursing around my body as stage excitement. Certainly, when I deal with people in the world, some of the hardest working people who work ridiculous hours and take on crazy amounts of work are just super motivated. They're super healthy and they're always happy. And that's because they've lined up all this stuff. And yet, I might find somebody with less to do in less demanding circumstances, with less on the go, and they're really unhappy and they're really demotivated and they've lost the plot. So, in all these cases, I think the biggest thing you can do is find a coach, find somebody you can talk to, find some colleagues who are on the same kind of journey, and share ways that work, that give you strategies to up that dopamine and power up your motivation and alignment with your purpose. Really, really important.
Thomas, most of the leaders in today's era, they understand the importance of this fulfillment, as it not only helps to improve the productivity, but it also helps to retain the employee, to give the employee satisfaction. But with my experience, I can say that most of the leaders struggle how to measure this fulfillment and how to enhance this fulfillment. So, as a regenesis or with your experience, can you explain and to define some tools to measure this and enhance it?
One of my favorite tools is from Gallup. It's actually called Strength Finder, and it was originally published in a book called Now Discover Your Strength by Marcus Buckingham and another chap whose name I can't remember, but it's called Now Discover Your Strength. And I think it's now called Strength Finder 2. Really great tool. And with the book, you get access to an online version of StrengthsFinder. And what this does is to help you dig down and identify your top 5 strengths. And the whole hypothesis of the book is each of us, when we're born, our brain wires up in a certain way that allows us to become extremely good at a number of key strengths, so that every time out we're exceptional in those particular strengths. The weakness that we've kind of built up over the years is to try and get people to fix their weaknesses rather than primarily find ways to use their strengths. And you'll find a whole introduction to this area. And again, this is part of the regenesis process, is to try and find ways to deploy your strengths, because you can never really fix a weakness beyond about 65% competence. Whereas your strengths, you'll be able to deploy those probably to a 95% plus percentile level of excellence every time out. So there's a key tool that I think would be really good for you to explore. So that's called Strength Finder, and it's from Gallup, and I can highly recommend that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Thomas, can you share some research findings on relationship between purpose-driven work and productivity? Because there is a very thin line which is, between these two terms. So, can you elaborate on this, please?
For sure, for sure. And in the thousands of people I've worked with, I can definitely say that the people who are on path, in other words, aligned to their inner mission and vision and values, were definitely going to be and had worked up becoming better over time at kind of like getting all that aligned are definitely doing better. They earn more, they're happier, they're more fulfilled. But also the research from organizations like Deloitte's found that the same is true at an organizational level as well. So if there's clarity of purpose right throughout an organization, and again, it's part of the Genesis process, we keep referring managers back to the fundamental purpose of the organization, and within the organization, what's their sub-purpose of their team or department or division, whatever it is. The more that's in place, what Deloitte found is those organizations outperform their peers by 42% on average financially. I mean, that's a massive difference between the organizations that lack meaning and those that really strengthen meaning. We're finding people are leaving organizations because their work lacks meaning for them somehow. Nobody, the managers and the direct reports of people, the supervisors, the team leaders, they haven't been shown how to help people join their inner mission to their outer work. If they start to do that, then the gains for the organization and ultimately for the individual are going to be huge. So remember that figure. You can ignore this. One of the risks of not using Regenesis is your organization will be 42% less well off financially. I find that a shocking statistic.
So, Thomas, can the managers effectively communicate their mission to inspire their teams? Because for a manager and a leader, it is very important that they should keep their team motivated and inspire them continuously. So, what do you think are the best ways to do that?
For me, there are three big questions that every single organization on the planet should be able to answer, whether it's a couple of people, a two-man band in a tiny micro-organization, or a massive corporate with thousands of employees. And these questions are: number one, you should be able to poll up to any employee in an organization and say, excuse me, would you mind if I asked you, how does what you do contribute to the wider goals of the organization? Now, to answer that question, you have to have purpose, the fundamental mission of the organization, and vision communicated to every person. And I'm a great advocate of saying, in an ideal world, every employee should have the current vision and mission statement written for them and in their hands so they can see how important their work is, they can see how they're contributing to society and the world around them through the work that they do. And their manager or team leader or supervisor or executives should all be helping them realize that. So that's question one. Question two is, okay, excuse me, would you mind if I ask you how what you do contributes alongside what other people in your organization are doing to contribute to the wider goals of the organization? Now, that's a whole lot more complex question, but once you start on the Regenesis process, you begin to see that this becomes possible. And so people look at how they're working things between them and they begin to collaborate more and cooperate more, which makes them feel even more purposeful. And then finally, the last question, which is for managers and executives and directors alone, which is, excuse me, would you mind if I asked you how what you do as a manager or supervisor or exec helps people at the sharp end do their job better? Now, therein bears the essence of the role, and that's what separates perhaps leadership as a notion from great management. To be a great manager, for sure, you have to be a great leader. And to be a great leader, for sure, you have to be a great manager. So in an ideal world, what we'd like to see in Regenesis is let's put those back together because they've become very unhelpfully separated. So let's put them back together and give our employees back the meaning and the mission and the vision that they truly deserve. And they can see how that plays out at a deeper level in the world that they live in.
Thomas, I've seen a lot of managers who understand that fulfillment is very, very important, but they struggle to, to mentor and coach or support their employee or team members to find their own fulfillment. So, can you elaborate some techniques for to which can help the managers or leaders to do it?
For sure, for sure. I mean, Sunil, one technique, as you know, is to be sure to provide the regular one-to-one sit-down coaching
Yeah.
sessions, focusing on individual strength and helping that person surface their aspiration, their personal mission. So it all starts there, and then helping that individual join what they care about as a person to what they're doing at work, and how that all it's I have a phrase, how many beans make five, and that process where you're joining one to the other, where personal goals and aspirations are dovetailed with work objectives and vision, vitally important, and that encourages team members to set personal development goals that serve both. But also, as managers, we need to take an interest, as much interest in how they're getting on, moving towards their personal goals as they would towards the work goals. And one of the things that can happen, I think, sometimes employees become rather target driven and there's no interest in them as a person. So employees need to feel safe and be able to express their passions and excitement with new ideas. That's all crucial as well. They need to be heard and listened to and feel that that is the case and that their life is meaningful. And great firms actually do this, as you know, as you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Thomas, one thing more which intrigues me is that how can managers create a purpose-driven culture within their organization?
It's back to these same things that we've been talking about today. Creating a purpose-driven culture involves embedding the mission and the vision into all aspects of the organization. And how do you know it's done? Well, if every employee has got the latest mission and vision and it's been sent to them in a personal kind of note, or they receive it direct from their manager and say, I'd like you to have this. I want you to understand how important the work that you do is for the realization of the mission of the organization. We understand who you are as an individual. We understand what you care about. Now, you can see we as an organization value this too. We want you to bring these, valuable assets to our organization, and we'd like to see every employee get that one-to-one support. We'd like to see policies and procedures and daily operations protocols written in a way that kind of honors the people it employs, regularly celebrating achievements that align with the mission and providing platforms for employees to share their stories and experiences can also strengthen the culture. So all this time, recognition and celebration of the value and the diversity and the creativity of employees, all of that really helps people feel valued. And we spend so much time at work. We might start work when we're less than 20 and continue to in our 70s or 80s even. So that's a lot of years of life to spend doing something that we don't enjoy. So very, very important that we do enjoy all those hours we spend. And we make the most of it for ourselves and for the world around us. And our families and our children are all able to see us living positive and worthwhile, fulfilling lives so that we can inspire them to do the same. And I think it's urgent now that managers start to work together to set this tone in the body of organizations, particularly at a time when it would be easy for technology and maybe AI bots to begin to do a lot of the underpinning work in a way that has no feeling. That could be devastatingly unhelpful and even unhealthy if we lose track of our own tie of our mission and vision to what we do.
Okay, great. So, Thomas, what are the strategies which can help in setting and achieving professional goals that align with personal missions? Because, again, I would say That's the struggle we constantly have. So, can you throw some light on this?
Sure, sure. There are three building blocks, I think. The first of these is to try and get every manager starts here. It starts with to lead others, you first must be able to lead yourself. So spend the time with building your personal and life strategy. And it's the very first thing. When you join Regenesis, it's the very first thing. As I said, you get over $1,000 worth of training and support and consulting right on the front end before you do anything. Even if you only spent just a few dollars joining the network, we do that work with you because we realize it will really unlock your potential as a person. Once you're in an organization, the next thing that we get into is what we call strategize. And this is all about making sure that the team building, the organization development team building is done, which is to make sure that mission, vision, values, and the vital few key areas of action to bring all that about is properly completed throughout the whole organization. So every single team and sub-team needs a little bit of time and effort to create their set of those and to make sure their action plans are all about creating that, bringing that into existence. And yes, we can use things like SMART goals frameworks, though I personally don't find SMART goals that, I find the words vague. Specific, measurable, achievable, and relevant. That's the SMART, and timescales or time bound. I don't find those words terribly helpful. What I'd rather see is verb, noun, number, date, and owner. I find that much more. So what's the verb? Well, it's a doing word. What are we doing? We're reducing or increasing or improving or whatever. With improving, the noun is the name of the thing that we're acting upon. The number is by how much? Well, it might be by $100,000, or it might be by 10%, or it might be 5%, or whatever. But there's a number, and there's by when, the date. Verb, noun, number, date. By when is this to be completed? And who is the person that owns this goal primarily? You can't have no owner. And I think that's one of the issues that I see sometimes when I see SMART played out, is you get a general goal applied to a group of people. And, well, who's the owner? Who's responsible for this? Well, nobody is, and everybody is. And there's a story about that, which I'll tell you another day. But there's a little, I'm sure many of you know, nobody, everybody, somebody, all set out to do something. And the story unfolds, and in the end, no, of course, nobody takes responsibility for it. And we need to change that. So it's crucial that we make sure that somebody is sitting down. So that third piece, we have intentionalize, which is the vision setting for individuals. We then have strategize, and then we've just been talking about individualize. So this is sitting down with individuals, at least on a monthly basis, and making sure that things are properly joined together for individuals.
Thomas, I'm a firm believer of that creating, spreading, and achieving happiness should be the purpose of our lives. And I also believe that this is possible with the alignment between professional goals and personal fulfillment. That is very, very important. I also believe that mindfulness helps in achieving this. But my question to you is that how this mindfulness and self-care practices help in maintaining this alignment between professional goals and personal fulfillment.
Sure. Well, mindfulness is really interesting. We've come full circle by you raising mindfulness, because that's back to that self-awareness again. So it is a practice. It says, these are mindful practices like meditation and journaling, and they are practices, things that we need to do over and over again. Life is a work of art, and it's also a work of intention, the best we can. And I believe our job in life is to become all that we're capable of being. And that's the journey. Nobody said that would be easy. But there are things that we can do to take care of ourselves, things like exercise and hobbies that prevent burnout, and ensure we remain energized. We can eat well, we can drink plenty of water, and focus on taking into our bodies food that is nutritional and good for us, and nourishing, and keeps us in condition really, and taking care of ourselves. These are all really core elements of the same thing of being mindful. We can't expect to let our body get out of health and then turn out our best self. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Thomas. That's very important and very interesting thought. But what are the some practical tips which you feel you can share with our viewers that for managing work-life balance to sustain long-term fulfillment? Because work-life balance is something which most of the managers are struggling with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of it is we've been sold a story that is separates work and life. And I think work needs integrating with life. And the people I see that are really successful somehow have made work a great joy, or certainly as much of a joy as they can possibly make it at this moment in time. And they love it as part of their life. So they're passionate and they're motivated. It's all the things that we've talked about. So I think the long term fulfillment goal and the mindfulness, keeping ourselves in good state and making sure we're spending time with our work and with our families and in our lives and taking care of ourselves, they're all part of an integrated package. And the struggle for me is not to separate the work life. They're not on opposite ends of the scale. They're all in the middle. And our job is to integrate them in a way that they flow and kind of support one another. Certain cultures, I think, do a much better job of that. So I think we can use prioritizing to make sure we're on track, but really it's being led by our personal mission and vision and integrating that with our work mission and vision and doing every day the best we can. So remember, the goal is to simply be all that we're capable of being the best we can be each day. And I don't think we can ask any more of ourselves, and to give ourselves good internal rewards, to think well of ourselves when we do it right, to encourage more of the same. And that's as far as I think we can take that. There is no easy answer.
Great. Thomas, what are the key metrics and KPIs for tracking fulfillment and satisfaction? Because that's another very important aspect, because KPIs are important for the organization, and but at the same time, there has to be some personal satisfaction in what you deliver to the organization. So, how do managers manage that?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is all about having a kind of joined up approach to it all. And I'm not sure that I really go for measurement on its own. I can tell you a recipe for stress and dissatisfaction, and that is to think about my vision and think about how far there still is to go. Or I can give you a recipe for satisfaction and celebration, which is to think about how far I've gone in the last 6 months towards realizing my mission and vision. And the one is stuff that I've created and put in the bank, and it's a much better way of being self-aware. So how far have we come? And so many organizations now lead with a target that's yet to be met, rather than saying, okay, in the last 3 months, you've done 10% more than you did, or 10% towards the journey that we set out. Well done. What were the things that worked the best, and how can you do more of those to help us go faster? So sharing good practice. There's a whole raft within the Genesis process, particularly when you get up towards the growth end, where we're continuously trying to identify the things that work the best. Who's got the best way of delivering that particular outcome? How do we then share that? So there's a double satisfaction. There's the kind of the original inventor of the best way. They get praised and thanked for sharing that with their colleagues. And then, of course, their colleagues get to use the best way, which works better than their old way. And that they get lots of internal rewards for that, and they get external praise because they're also now providing better performance. So it's about working in a more celebratory way and thinking very carefully about key metrics, including job satisfaction scores, employee engagement level, and work-life, I wouldn't say balance, but work-life health. How, how are employees in scoring their own enjoyment in their life as a result of being at work? Very different kind of score. So regular feedback from peers and self-assessments can also provide valuable insights, but don't get too obsessed with the need to kind of satisfy some kind of target. It's much more important to make real progress against real goals and make a real difference to real customers, almost than anything else. And of course, and being profitable as an organization whilst doing this is a much better approach. And again, within the regenesis process, at the other end from where a lot of this work takes place, we've got the catalyzing growth. And all of these things, the best organizations use to motivate growth and creativity and better performance and new products, of course, as well. So very, very important to all of this.
Thomas, I think two aspects right now for the leadership skill set when we talk resilience and adaptability. These are the two important aspects of leadership skill. So, can you little bit elaborate that how one leader can build these two skill set and how regenesis can help in building those skill sets to the leaders?
Absolutely. And building resilience always involved developing our people, helping them have a growth mindset for themselves and their potential that enables them to embrace challenges and spot opportunities for growth and better work. It's not all about straight out growth. It is about being in line with that original mission. What did the company, what did the business, whatever it is, the public service organization originally set out to do? And is it now realizing that? Now, a really good example here would be, for example, most national health systems were set up to improve the health of the population. And when they start in companies with very poor health systems, they often achieve a lot of very rapid progress in the early days. But the more they get confused about their primary goal, the more they're likely to fall into a second area of emphasis, which is improving the quality and the availability of illness treatment services. Now, there's a fine line between those two missions, but they are quite different. Because if you focus on creating more and more services to deal with more and more illnesses, guess what? The public will oblige you with. They'll create more and more illnesses to take up the capacity in the more and more illness services. Funny outcome. Whereas if you focus on your health, well, health and wellness are things that you can also do yourself. So the more the organizations stay true to their original purposes, and often it starts by introducing clean water and sanitation, makes a massive difference. But if you can keep that mindset and say, okay, now we've got our improvement in health that comes from clean water and sanitation. Now, how do we focus on keeping people mentally and physically motivated and well and looking after themselves? How can we build in the behaviors and the values that maintain those qualities of wellness rather than even thinking about the illness? We do a lot better with our health services. But of course, everything gets lost. And eventually they start to even compare the quality and availability of health services between and within communities. So they get completely lost. So very important to this fundamental rightness of your primary mission in an organization. What did it set out to do? And what's its vision for what that looks like when it's being realized to the maximum envisionable extent. And the same is true of your life. What do you personally care about? What do you want to add to the world in your lifetime? What do you want to make a difference to in your lifetime? What's your vision for this? How you'll do that through your work or in your work? Some very big questions there for most people. And I
So
think
this
that
is a
probably brings
topic.
us.
Yeah.
Go
So
on.
Thomas, this is a topic we can go on and on, but we are running out of time. So let's quickly wrap it up and maybe ask for any questions from viewers if there are any.
Sure.
We
Big
have,
subject today.
yeah, I think we have one question from Pranjal. How do we maintain a sense of fulfillment during uncertainty or transition?
Sure. How do we maintain a sense of fulfillment during times of uncertainty or transition? We just have to hang on the best we can. I think, Franchel, that's the best thing I can say. We've all been through those times. Every person that's lived a life worth living has had the good and the bad. And all you do is hang on the best you can. Try not to get blown off course. And if you do, don't worry. Just come to your reset, get your mindfulness going, and become self aware once again, and reset, get back on track. And that's probably the biggest answer I can give you there. Anybody else got anything to say before we sign off?
Yeah, be your best. That's the only thing you can do. Yeah.
That's right.
Sure. Okay, everybody, thank you very much. It's been a big conversation today. Thank you for your contribution, everybody. And thank you particularly to Rajiv and Sunil for listening and adding their insights and kind of very powerful questions. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Thomas. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Rajiv. With this, we would like to conclude our show for today, and we'll have another session coming up tomorrow at same time at 6:30 evening with Sanjeev Lahari being talking on about CRO, CEs or CHRO. He will be talking on a topic tomorrow. And we'll have a similar session every Wednesday with Thomas and Rajiv, Sunil discussing on various topics of management and leadership. Thank you for now. We'll sign off for the day. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.